Hi, this is Bob from Hobby Concepts, and today I'm going to talk about duplicating a real truck. I've got some pictures here of a abandoned Freightliner that is sitting in a field, and I am going to take this globe liner and convert it and make it into a truck that's similar to that truck in the field. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the things I do when I'm building a truck and looking at pictures and going back and forth. This video is going to be part one. It'll be two parts. This part, chassis, got some different tail lights, have a headache rack, a few other little things that I've changed. And then the second part will be all the body work, which will be pretty expensive on this truck. So anyway, part one today. Let's get started. So sometimes people ask me, how do you get ideas for what you're going to build, or what are you going to build next, or how does that work? And you know, I just kind of build what hits my fancy. I don't know. I never know. Sometimes people will call me and request me to build something for them. I really don't like to do that too often, because I like to build what I want to build. But several months ago, I got an email, and the gentleman said, "This is my dad's old truck. Can you build a model of it?" And I looked at this picture of this old Freightliner sitting in the weeds, and it just caught my fancy. I just said, "Oh, that is so cool. Send me more pictures." So I got a few more pictures of it, parked in the weeds, just fading away, but it had this really cool kind of a maroonish and gold paint job. These pictures are fascinating. I just loved them. A little bit different grill than the globe liner, but not a big problem. And again, this really cool kind of gold maroonish paint scheme. So I said, dang, I want to build that. So in this video, we're going to build this truck. Now I do have a few more pictures of it on my computer, which as I build the truck we'll kind of take a look at. But it's got, and I said, would you be interested in having me build it like it is now, or like when it was new? No, like when it was new. So, okay, that's pretty straightforward. So first thing I did as we get going is I just assembled a globe liner chassis, completely stock except for a 55 turn motor and full ball bearings. So nothing exciting here. Stock globe liner. The only change are black mud flaps. Okay, so this is my basic starting point, and in this video we're going to build this truck, and I'm going to talk about some of the things I'm going to do to it as we go along the way. And we're going to skip over the chassis part because I built lots of chassis, and you can go watch one of my other videos to see that. So we're going to talk about how to make this into this in this video. So I hope it works. I've actually got another one I'm going to do right after this, which is a king hauler with a shortened sleeper. So let's concentrate on the globe liner for now. As I continue to work on the mechanical part of this truck, not the body, I mounted the coupler deck, and you can see I installed a servo in it just like I normally do. Now this plate right here is for a headache rack. Now the truck, I told you I had some additional pictures. We'll see if I can show that good enough. That is the headache rack on the actual truck. So I found one that's pretty darn close, and we're getting that installed. So that just is simply this metal plate right here, which screws down on the deck, and there's already tapped holes in the deck for it, because that would be where the little plate that has the arm that operates the coupler goes. Well, I'm not using that because I put a servo in, so I mounted this down here. And then the rack itself has little tabs here that just drop over this. slide back, and then there's two little screws that hold it down. So that's the headache rack. Now this particular rack has lights in it. The actual truck didn't, but I'm going to go ahead and hook up the lights anyway. And yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. So now what I'm going to do as I continue to work on the mechanical part is I'm going to go ahead and modify the cab base and get the MFC and everything mounted down. I did a video on that very recently on how to mount an MFC in a globe liner, and so I will do the exact same thing. I'll get the MFC mounted, make the bracket, mount all the electrical parts, probably mount the seats, and then we'll get to work on the body. Now the other thing on this truck is it has a very unusual taillight setup. And again, you can see it just has two little tiny tail lights on the back. So I've been on the hunt for something that would work. I didn't really want to scratch build it, so I've got a couple tail lights I found coming, and so I'm not going to mount anything back there right now. I'm going to wait and see what we can come up with the tail light setup. But I'd like to have turn signals, brake lights, and reverse lights all in the same lens, just like they did here on this real truck. So I'll continue to work on that. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting for those parts to come, I can go ahead and mount all the mechanism here and kind of get that interior done, and then go to work on the body. So as I continue along with the chassis, this truck had two, looks like trailer lights, tail lights, just really little tiny tail lights. And so I'm trying to figure out how to duplicate them, and I found this tail light housing that has two lights, and it's got some funky lenses in it. But the housing itself looks pretty good, so what I'm thinking I'm going to do is mount this housing to the back bumper brackets and make my own lens, and then put three bulbs inside each one, a reverse bulb, a turn bulb, and a stop bulb, and then wire those into the MFC, and then bolt this to the bracket. So I'm going to have to saw these off and then bolt this on here, and then put some lights in it and maybe make some lenses for it. So I'll go ahead and do that, and we'll show you how I do that along the way. I sawed off the pins on the back, and now what I'm going to do is take this and bolt it on here. But to do that, there's a ridge right here I have to get off, so I've got a little sanding bit in my Dremel tool, and I will just grind this away, being careful not to hit the housing until I get that down out of the way, so I can drill a hole through it and put a bolt through. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish grinding that out on both sides. This stuff grinds pretty easily. This was the taillight housing for some RC car I found on eBay, but it's pretty close, and it makes a nice solid installation. So I'll grind that out, drill some holes through here, and bolt this on. And I probably won't bolt it on. I'm going to drill the holes and stuff, but I won't bolt it on until after I get the lights installed in it. So I've got the light housing all prepped. I drilled holes in it to bolt it on. I took these lenses and I cut them off in the bandsaw and sanded them so they were thinner, so there's a little more room behind them. And then what I've done here is I took the strings from the MFC and replaced the 5mm bulbs with 3mm bulbs on the tail, on the turn signals, and I used red. And then on the tail light, I replaced the 5mm bulbs with 3mm bulbs. And then on the backup lights, which normally the globe liner doesn't use, I took the single backup light and replaced it with dual 3mm bulbs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and glue it in so that I have the white bulb on the top, and then the brake light on the side and the turn signal on the side, and I'll stick them to the edge of this housing with hot glue, and then I'll mount the lens on top of it, and then I'll have basically a white backup light, a red brake light, and a red turn signal. I'll leave the lens clear, but that way when you activate the lights, you'll get the correct color effect. So I will glue those in, and then once I get that done, this will bolt across the rear bumper mount like that, and we'll run the wires up to the MFC. Well, you can see here I've got my chassis done. I made a little bulkhead for behind the seats to hide the MFC. I'll probably build a little engine box for it. I'm painting the seats right now. I've got the MFC installed in the speaker. I've showed in an earlier video how I do that in a globe liner to hide everything. And then I installed a plug on the lights in the headache rack. You can see it right here, because this rack needs to be removable in order to get to the battery box. It's got two little thumb screws here, and it just has a little lip on the front edge, so it just kind of goes like that, and then the thumb screws hold it on. So that's pretty straightforward. And then I've got my tail lights done. Actually, I'll fire it up and we'll take a look at those. Well, I fired this up so you can see it. And the first thing is the lights in the headache rack. They're very straightforward, just on or off. And then the tail lights have turn signals, of course. They've got backup lights. And brake lights. And then, of course, they have tail lights. So, that takes care of the chassis lighting. There is no other lighting in the chassis. All the other lighting is going to be in the body. So, now what I'm going to do is start to concentrate on this body. Now, the pictures that I've got, oh my gosh, there's just so much. There's a lot of interesting little details here that that this body doesn't have. For example, on this body there's some grates right here, which of course this Freightliner doesn't have. There's an air intake up here on the top. You can see under the weeds, it sits in this area. And then down here, there's some air intake grills, and the headlights are actually up in this area. So I've got to do a lot of body work on this. I covered the Tamiya holes in the back. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this video here with the chassis. And then I'm going to do the body in a separate part, because it's going to be just the body. And I'm going to talk about how I follow this for the paint scheme and for the detailing. So I'll be doing that in part 2. Now, part 2 is going to be a while, because as I'm speaking, I'm getting ready to go out of town for 6 weeks. So probably April 2024 is when you'll see part 2. So it's going to be a little bit, but I did want to show kind of this chassis, the headache rack, how I did the rear lighting, and talk about the steps involved in duplicating a real truck. So there we go. That's part 1 of this custom globe liner duplicate, whatever you want to call it. So anyway, as usual, I appreciate you watching. Give this video a thumbs up, helps with the rankings, and please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.